Welcome to the very first official episode of the Unfiled Nonprofit Podcast. I'm Cherry Chen, a chartered professional accountant, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey. This podcast is all about diving into the real world of nonprofit leadership. We're here to share inspiring stories, experiences, and the truth about what it takes to operate a nonprofit successfully. Think of this as your very own mastermind session on the go. Each episode will be talking to incredible leaders in the nonprofit sector, exploring their journeys, ups and downs, challenges, and the innovative solutions that they found along the way. Now, let's get to today's episode. I'm absolutely honored to have Tracy Folkes Hanson as our very first guest. Tracy is a visionary and a thought leader, well known for her success in developing and driving corporate culture, collaboration, and strategy. She joined the Canadian Society of Association Executives, CSAE, as president and CEO in July 2017 and has held senior positions in both the private and nonprofit sector, including the Ontario Chamber of Commerce and MasterCard International. I'm excited to dive into our conversation today, where we'll explore Tracy's journey, her insights on leadership, and the valuable lessons she's learned along the way. So without further ado, let's welcome Tracy Folkes Hanson to the Unfiled Nonprofit Podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our inaugural episode of our Unfiled Nonprofit Podcast. And today we're very fortunate to have Tracy Folkes Hanson from CSAE, Canadian Society of Association Executives, the Association for Association Executive, which is awesome. And I'm so lucky to have you on, Tracy, as my inaugural podcast guest. So hi, Tracy, how are you doing?
Hi, Cherry. I'm well, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here and honored that I'm joining you for this inaugural podcast. This is kind of fun. This is the first time you're doing it, and I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, like you have been executive director for CSAE for a number of years now, right?
Mm-hmm. Almost 7.
Yeah.
It'll be 7 at the end of July.
Oh my God, it is a long time. But this is not your first career. A nonprofit is not your first career after school. So how did you end up in the nonprofit world and has been in CSAE for 7 years, has been leading CSAE for 7 years?
Yeah, it's been a journey and not a linear one. And I would recommend to anybody starting their career that no career path should be linear. You want to have those ups and downs and a whole bunch of experiences. And I've been really fortunate throughout my career. I studied, believe it or not, recreation leadership and kinesiology. That was my undergrad studies. I always thought that I wanted to be paid to play. I used to have heated discussions with my parents about, I could be a lifeguard forever, couldn't I? Of course, that was the dream of 16-year-old Tracy. So after school, I really, and then my postgrad studies were in communications and public relations. So I really thought that I'd be able to tie the two of them together and work in the not-for-profit sector, doing both. I think my real vision all those years ago was to sort of, be the comms person for Ontario Place or something like that. Mm-hmm. Coming out of school, though, I was recognized by some people, and I was hired by an ad agency to work in their public relations unit. And that's where I started to write for magazines and do a lot of communications work and work with varied clients. And so I worked with 2 or 3 ad agencies early in my career, always from a marketing communications frame. And then I had the opportunity to join a client. And that's what took me down the path in financial services. I was first with National Trust and then was recruited to MasterCard. Then, believe it or not, it was the MasterCard Association of Canada, which came under the wing of MasterCard International. So I say that I cut my teeth in communications marketing agencies, and then sort of grew up at MasterCard building the MasterCard brand in Canada, and then was fortunate enough to work on some global projects as well. So including the Priceless campaign. So that's part of the first part of my journey in the work world.
And then what makes you switch or jump ship from like a corporate world, from the corporate private world to this nonprofit world, which is not easy by any means?
Right. So the transition was a very easy one for me. Philosophically, it was a very easy one for me. I grew up in a home where my parents were community volunteers. I've always been a community volunteer. I've always been, my husband and I and my children have always been a part of the community that we live in. We've always given back in a variety of different ways. And I saw that growing up. So it was instilled in me at a very early age. It just became part of who I am in the world and who I want to be in the world in terms of giving back. So when I had an opportunity I'd gotten to a point in my career where I thought I really do want to, I want the work to be more meaningful. I want to make sure that I'm making a difference with the work that I'm doing. So I really thought long and hard about the skills that I had from a marketing communications, big brand building perspective, and how I could transfer all of those skills into the not-for-profit sector. And that was a challenge because I had to convince people that the skills were in fact transferable. And I had the fortune to land with Kinark Child and Family Services, which is the largest child and youth mental health agency in Ontario. And they didn't have a communications department. They wanted to start one. And I had the opportunity to join them and make the switch from the for-profit sector into the not-for-profit sector, and specifically there with social services, which was a whole area that was brand new to me. But I'm proud of the work that I was able to do once I got there. And from there, I have stayed in the not-for-profit sector. So I suppose I can use Kathy Black's quote that I spent the first half of my career chasing success and the second half chasing significance.
That's amazing. That is cool. Like, gives me chills just hearing it. I feel I could totally relate to it when I first started off with Otis Group, which primarily serviced the nonprofit and association sector. And I come from the world that my other business actually serve like regular for-profit folks, helping them. It's still helping people. It's just in different capacity. And it just gave me a lot more satisfaction helping nonprofit because they are also doing bigger things to help the society as a whole. So I know it's hard to explain, but it just gives me the chills when you mentioned that quote. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that's awesome. And now, I know, if you don't mind me asking, my understanding working with CSAE for the last year is that CSAE is a virtual organization. And I know that a lot of nonprofit has, since COVID, has abandoned the physical office idea anyway. So, and I know that CSAE has been operating under a virtual office idea. Was CSAE always a virtual office, or it was an in office before COVID? What's the status of that? Because a lot of my clients personally are considering abandoning the whole office idea.
CSAE held office space on the corner, essentially the corner of Yonge Street and King Street in downtown Toronto for 20 years.
Wow.
And up until 2021. So I've been with CSAE for almost 7 years, as we said. And so we had the office space. So we had brick and mortar. We were in a great position in 2018 where we had leasehold improvement funds, and we were able to renovate the office. So we collaborated as a team. We talked about what it was that we wanted, what we wanted the vibe to be in the office. So we opened it all up and we renovated it all. That ended up working out in our favor a few years later when the great disruptor happened. And I certainly refer to the pandemic as the great disruptor. It
Yep.
certainly has been of my career and of my lifetime.
Yeah.
We had already started looking at how much space we had and whether or not we needed all of the space. And when the lease was up, would we go to virtual? Would we go to sort of hybrid? When I came in, it was really important to establish a really great culture and one that puts people's lives first. Then there's a real sense of belonging and ownership of the work that you're actually doing. You can really dive into the work and want the work to be really good when you have that great balance. So we already had flexible hours where people could work from home if they needed to, and I know, often member associations of CSE, often, events are the lifeblood of some of the work that we do. So, people are working remotely anyway. So we were able to do that. We were already doing that. The board was actually using Zoom and other online tools to meet prior to me joining in 2017. So pretty progressive in a few ways. So when the great disruptor happened and we left the office in the spring of 2020, like everybody else did, by the fall of 2020, we realized that we might not be going back anytime soon to downtown Toronto. So we did some research with our realtor, and we talked to the board. We talked to the team first and foremost about what it would look like if we moved to virtual operations. And we realized that we could do it. And we put the space up up on the market. The fact that it was newly renovated, the fact that it was one whole floor, the fact that it was literally steps to the subway station at Yonge and King in terms of location, worked in our favor, and we were able to sublease it. So we were out of the office by the third week in January of 2021, and we haven't gone back. So I'm grateful to Rhonda McIntyre, who is CSE's Senior Director of Integrated Services, who, is just so organized, and grateful to all of the team. Eve was busy selling off some of our furniture, and the team was in and out at we couldn't all be there together to clean things out. And when the pandemic started, we had let everybody go in to the office in a staggered way to get their monitors and to get their chairs and their phones. So everybody had that sort of all of their personal stuff anyway. Since then, we've operated as a virtual organization, and we've had employees move on to other organizations, thankfully member organizations, which is great. Bittersweet, but it's great. We still get to see them and work with them. And we've onboarded new employees in a fully virtual environment. So we now have employees from, we have Montreal, Ottawa, Kingston, Cobourg, into the GTA, and out the other side in Guelph, Kitchener-Waterloo, and London. So we have this great corridor of talent because we're not handcuffed to or tied to one geographical location.
Yeah, so that's awesome. I guess the biggest question I have, because I'm considering this is my goal anyway, to move my whole office as virtual. A portion of my business is virtual, the other side is not virtual. And I guess the biggest concern, even with some of my association clients, is that, hey, like if they move completely virtual, how do you maintain that culture, and how do you maintain that one cohesive team? So what have CSAE been doing to create that type of culture, I guess maintain the team environment and not just over screen?
That's the best question that you should be asking, because that's where the hard work comes in, right? Is to make sure that you're continuing to develop a solid culture and a solid team. I'm very lucky that the team at CSA has always been very connected, and we didn't want to lose that. So we do a number of things. So initially during the lockdown phases of the pandemic, we did a lot of social activity online, so that we would get together and just not talk about work, not talk about how we were feeling about work. We would just have some fun together. In the early days of the pandemic, we would get together virtually just to say, how's everybody doing? And we actually had a graph of, somebody had sent me this really great graph of faces, like happy faces, but they went from I'm on fire, so a red face, to green and smiling. So, and we could check in that way. Since then, in order to really maintain that culture of collaboration and inclusivity and connectedness, we spend time. We have a monthly team huddle, which is essentially a team meeting. We use Remo, which is one of the platforms. We use it for our AGM. We've used it. You've probably joined us in Remo before. In fact, I know you have, because we just did Executive Insights in Remo. That platform we actually use 3 days a week at CSAE. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we have what we call the CSAE Cafe. So from 9 to 11, everybody works out of the cafe. Now, you might have other meetings, but you could, if you're familiar with the Remo platform, you sit at a little table. So it almost looks, when you're looking at the screen, everybody's at a different table. So it almost looks like they're in their own office space. And then if Megan needs to ask Stephen a question, then, she just shoots over to Stephen's table. If Shanaz and I need to talk about something that we're writing together, then, we connect at a table. And we do that, as I said, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, to make sure that you're there. And sometimes it really is, people are sitting together at a table, drinking their morning coffee and having a conversation about what their weekend was like. So we've replicated that in that space. The other thing that is fundamental that we do is we do plan for a retreat every year. It's one night, like it's 2 days, a day and a half, and an evening, so that we can all be together to celebrate, to do some team building, to work together, to build the plans, to strategize, to support each other. Those are some of the things that we do on a consistent basis to make sure that we are all staying connected, and that's been really beneficial. And recently, in the last year and a half, we've really ramped up the use of Teams, the message board on Teams, and a few of those things. So those have been really helpful as well. But I'm particularly proud of the cafe because it's really fun to just drop in and.
I know it's an unusual. I would say it is an unusual way of keeping, I guess, employees or the team connected to each other, because it's literally just like they're sitting there and you can just go in and talk to that person. And I'm like, you guys are very progressive that way.
Well, we like to think so. The interesting thing is, I was at an event a couple of years ago, and I was at a table and I was having a conversation with some people, and they were talking about virtual versus hybrid versus mandate back to work. And you got to do what's right for your own organization. Your people. A big part of it is, it's not about productivity or performance. You're measuring that anyway. Like, you can see when people are at their very best, and when they need to step back and take a break. And virtual operations allows for that flexibility in one's schedule. Like, someone will say to me, I got to get my hair done and I can only get an appointment at 2 this afternoon. So I'll be offline for a little bit and then I'll be back online. That flexibility, because they're close to home, or they got to walk the dog, or they got to pick their kids up from school, and then they jump back on. Creating, a fluid schedule so people can work in the way that makes the most sense for them. It's kind of like individual education plans for kids at school, right? Like, my youngest had an IEP because he has
he's gifted.
Well, he's that, and he also has dyslexia, so he needed some extra assistance in school, and he availed himself completely of those kinds of things. But the individual plan allowed him to do that. It's kind of like an individual work plan. Everybody knows what the goals are. We plan and we write the annual plan based off of the strategic plan and the direction that the board sets for us. We write that together, so everybody finds themselves in that plan. Everybody knows what it is that they're responsible to do. And then they're trusted to do it. And we don't always get it right. Sometimes we do things and they don't always work. Sometimes we try something, but it's all of that learning, and it's creating that culture of curiosity and that culture of collaboration, and that we're all in it together. And that's built from the culture, and the culture of, you're all really smart people. We want you to live your lives, but we want you to bring your best when you're at CSAE. And that's what we get in this really cool virtual environment. So
That's
yeah,
amazing. I really like this virtual work together, remote together day, and it's very eye opening to hear like a real life story of
yeah.
of someone who has implemented it. Now, I from our previous conversation, you also told me share a little bit about your newly introduced policy to include. I know
Mhm.
a lot of people are talking about inclusivity and all these things, and you have introduced a great policy that's very well received among your staff members. Can you walk us through what that is?
Yes. So I think I will agree with you that EDI at everywhere is an
Yep.
important conversation. And everyone's at different, all organizations. I know I talk to lots of members, they're in different stages of where they're at. CSE's board a few years ago really uh, really put the pedal to the metal and developed with a
Mhm.
consultant an EDI strategy for CSAE to ensure that CSAE is a more inclusive, diverse organization, and also so that we could model it for our members. There's a lot of things that go with that, and we now have an EDI advisory of members that has been pulled together that are overseeing that action plan and making sure that those action items are happening. So that being said, internally the team has been very focused on diversity and inclusion. It's one of our core values, and so we've worked really hard to respect that within the organization. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is a policy that you're talking about. And it's our statutory holiday policy. So we
Mm.
at CSE now have a policy where any team member can swap out. We've identified 5 statutory holidays that are on
Mm.
the calendar by the government. And any team member at CSE can swap out any of those 5 stat holidays for a day or 2 or however many of greater personal significance to them. So
Mm.
I think when we talked about this a while ago, I had said throughout my career, I've worked with a whole bunch of different people who, have reason to take time off for a lot of different reasons.
Mhm.
The Christian holidays always seem to be the faith-based holidays that everybody gets. And if you have another holiday that you want to observe or a day that you want to observe, you usually take your vacation time. We
Mhm.
wanted to eliminate that and make that much easier and much more inclusive to our team. And that particular policy has been really well received. And it's one that I'm particularly proud of. It's not hard for an association to do. It's
Yeah.
not, it doesn't cost anything, and it doesn't require a great deal. The policy, I think, is half a page long, and we're happy to share it. In fact, it's probably on the CSA resource library on Associations Connect. But
Yep.
the reality is the impact is significant.
That's awesome. That is a great idea because, just like you mentioned earlier, I personally am not Christian. The only reason I'm celebrating or taking the day off is because it's a day off and my kids are off. It's not really for of any significance to me. And it would be better if I get, like, for example, the Lunar New Year holiday for me because that's what my family celebrates. And it would be nice to have a day off that day rather than, Good Friday to me anyway. So that is a fantastic policy that doesn't cost anything, and people will be happy about it.
Exactly.
Hello, Unfiled Nonprofit listeners. It's Cherry Chan here, your host and the CEO of Otis Financial Solutions. Let's talk about something that can be a major headache for many nonprofits, managing your finances. Are you feeling overwhelmed by budgeting, financial reports, or keeping up with compliance? You're not alone. Many nonprofit leaders struggle with these issues too, but you don't have to. At Otis Financial Solutions, we specialize in making financial management easy for nonprofit leaders and associations leaders. For over 18 years, we've been turning financial stress into peace of mind. Our services are designed to meet your unique needs, from day-to-day bookkeeping to strategic financial planning. Imagine having more time to focus on your mission, knowing that your finances are in experts' hands. If that sounds like something you need, I'm offering a no-obligation 20-minute consultation. Let's discuss your challenges and explore how Otis can help you achieve your goals. Visit nonprofitcfo.ca to book your call today. Let's simplify your financial management together. These are all great tips to share with other association leader and nonprofit leader as well. And now let's dive something deeper. I know you've been with CSAE for the last 7 years. It's been a long time. And what have you done in the last 7 years to the CSAE membership? I know CSAE has a large membership. It has 2,500 members and it's large. Like, how do you create value to this community altogether? What have you done to increase the value?
It's all for us. It's all about Sarah Sladek, who wrote the book Membership. She's written several books. You know her. You recently were introduced to her. She's written several books on membership, and she always uses the phrase member centric. So we should really be focused on members and what members need from us. So we've done over the years many different surveys and polls with our members, not just the reports like the benefits and compensation report, which is really well received. And we do it every year because association leaders, it's really a good benchmark. But things like the recent membership trends report, which was really important. Everybody sort of wanted to get a sense of what's happening out in the world. We're doing a tech study right now. There's a report coming out. So all of those things are really important to capture, what it is that our members need. And we do need assessments. We've done, we capture as much literature and data as we possibly can from our members. Interestingly enough, when I first got to CSAE, we have members from coast to coast to coast. And so one of the first things I think we launched it in 2018 is the online community or the online platform of Associations Connect. And in the past year, we've just gone to Associations Connect 2.0. So we've just revitalized it a little bit. It's a little more user friendly than it used to be, but it's always been this incredible platform for members to connect and engage from across the country, regardless of where you are. So we're really introducing that there was a real need for it several years ago, and that need just continues. So I'm really glad that we introduced it long before the pandemic hit, because it was one of those platforms that really kept people connected. It's a source of support. It's a source of knowledge and information exchange. And it's just it's a thriving online community, which is fantastic. And so last year, more recently, we just launched the online marketplace, which is CSE's version of an online community to connect businesses and our business members and partners who support the work of associations and association professionals. So association professionals can go into Marketplace and should go into Marketplace. I encourage everybody to do it. Put your profile in when you're looking for a consultant, be it financial services or strategic development or a venue for your next event. You can find all of the business partners there. You can find out more about them. I encourage our business partners to, increase your profile there so that you can really share what it is that you offer. But it has really become a marketplace for both parties to come together and get all of the support products and services that they need. And from the business side, a place to really accentuate and let people know how you can help. Let association professionals know how you can help their association, because it's not always just about the sell. It's about the relationship that needs to be developed so that we can come together and really support each other. So Associations Connect, huge hit, really great online community, marketplace just starting. We expect, it will be that similar environment as Associations Connect, but that real place where you can go and get the services and products that you need as an association professional.
That's amazing. Like, I think a lot of associations or nonprofit out there are trying to create a platform for either their donor or their members to connect to each other. And one thing that I wanted to ask is, back at the very beginning, when you first implement Association Connect, which is the platform, which is the only platform that I know, or that's how I look at CSAE, because that's the storefront of CSAE. I get emails all the time, and I'm a member, and I feel like this is really the membership that I get. This is where I get all my value. So congratulations on that. But before we get to the current success, like, how did you even find the funding to launch this? Because a lot of people are having, like, a lot of association leaders or nonprofit leaders that I talk to, they want to implement a lot of like online community or things that they want to implement. How do you even get funding? Did you get any pushback from the team at the time as well for implementation? Because people have all these, I guess, cultural shock or whatever you want to call it, like preconceived way of doing things, and they don't want change. How did you, like, what kind of challenge did you, did you experience when you launched this community, and how do you push through that from financial sense perspective as well?
Yeah. So first of all, the team was ready for it and our members were ready for it. We already had some research that this was something that was needed. And when I joined at the time, we used to hold what we called leaders forums. So we used to bring the network volunteers together with the board and have conversation. And that was the first couple of years of my tenure at CSAE. And I remember being at the Leaders Forum in April of 2018, and it came, we would do brainstorming sessions at, group work and whatever. And it was reported at almost every table that they wanted some kind of connect or some kind of online space where everybody could connect. We had already signed the deal internally, operationally, we had already signed the deal to build Associations Connect. So I was really, really excited because the feedback was right there. We were already moving forward so we had full support from volunteers, from the board. We had early adopters. We knew members that really wanted it. So we had those early adopters, and how we implemented it was we opened it up to the entire association world first. And it was always the plan, and it was communicated that it would always be the plan, that there would be some point in time where we would close the gate on it and it would become a member only offering. Because
so it's everybody first.
Yeah, we opened it up first, and then once it was operating for about, I want to say it was about a year, it might have been a bit longer, we closed the gate on it with full communication and transparency to those who were not members, to say this is a member only offering. And that was, we wanted to create the thriving community, and then we wanted to make sure that it was in fact a feature of membership. So the feature is Associations Connect. You get it with your membership. The benefit of being able to communicate on Associations Connect is you expand your network, you connect with people who are doing similar things that you're doing, you connect with people who can help solve your problems, or you can provide insight to others as well. And so that's the benefit of being part of that community. And in a country as geographically as big as Canada is, what a great way to be able to stay connected in a variety of different ways. How we funded it, because we hadn't planned for it, was we did it through sponsorship. We did it through a partnership. So the people who had built the platform wanted to connect with associations in Canada. So when you're in the enviable position of being the association for associations in Canada, so we were able to build a partnership to build it. And then there are some costs to operate it. There are costs to sustain it and to maintain it. And so the initial build we did through partnership, and then the ongoing, now that it's established and well established, we're able to just build it into the operations budget.
So is it, would you say that this is a money maker project? I know it is definitely impactful. So it's not a money maker.
Now, it's not a revenue generator. It is, so we always look at, associations are always looking, what's your revenue pie, and then, non-dues revenue. Associations Connect isn't that. It's not there as a revenue generating tool. It not a direct one. Indirectly, because it's such a strong tool for member engagement and member connection. Well, I would say that without it, our renewal rates wouldn't be as decent as they are.
Awesome. That's great. That's great. I mean, with the marketplace being launched this year, I'm sure that there will be some revenue that could potentially come in as well. And I guess my next question is, so we talked about what you have accomplished. Let's talk about some deeper stuff. What are your biggest challenge that you're currently facing, if you don't mind sharing at all? Yeah.
Well, it's mine is very similar to, or CSAE's is, which is, partially mine, is very similar to other CSAE members, and that's the economy. The economy, and if you joined us at Executive Insights, we had Peter Hall, renowned economist, share the outlook. And I think that, so the economy has been really tough, right? The pandemic, and it's interesting because I had conversations with people when the pandemic first hit. And I kept saying the economic fallout will come after, right? Here's the event. Here's the big disruptor that's happening. The economy, the economic crisis will follow. It doesn't always happen at the same time. There's usually a fallout afterwards. And I think that's the pinch that we've been feeling the last couple of years. And CSAE is not immune to that. We have worked really hard to build plans that provide the value to our members. One of the places where I think we've gone wrong in the last, not necessarily in the past year, but the year when we sort of were coming out of the lockdown period and re-emerging back into the world, just like everybody else, we wanted to find that return to normal unicorn. Well, as much as I'd like to believe, as much as my favorite color is pink and I'd like to believe that unicorns exist, they don't. And so that return to normal piece it's just not the same. Our member behavior has shifted. The way members engage has shifted, where pre-pandemic people would get in their cars and drive into Toronto to go to a lunch and learn for a couple of hours and then go back to their offices, or their offices were close enough to get to a lunch and learn. That's all changed. People now know through the pandemic and through technology, which is brilliant and wonderful and changes every 20 minutes, that we can connect online. I can learn online. I can learn by, I can learn a variety of things. I can attend an event online. I can do a tutorial online. There's lots of ways for me to do things that I used to have to go do in person. And we tried really hard to meet those pre-pandemic expectations because everybody kept saying, oh, we want to get together. We want to get together.
Yep.
And we do. We just don't want to get together in the same way that we used to. So one of the things that we've really seen from a diagnostics perspective is attendance at our signature events. Summer Summit just sold out. It's in July in Kingston. Conference is, moving along really well. Earlier this year had sold out. So all of those things people are willing to come to because it's a couple of days, right?
Yep.
But those lunch and learns, we still want them. We still want the knowledge and the information. People are willing to do that and give us their time to come to it, but if they can do it from the comfort of their own offices. So those are some of the shifts that we've had to make in recognizing, oh, wait a minute, what are the diagnostics? What are the behaviors telling us? They're telling us a very different story than before. So we need to react to that, and we need to make sure that we're delivering value through that, because only through delivering value will we retain members and recruit more members. And in a recent exercise that CSAE has been focused on in terms of looking at our member value proposition, we've realized that CSAE does in fact have a great deal of offerings and opportunities for learning and growing
Absolutely.
and connecting and engaging. We score very high with them. We haven't necessarily, we could do a much better job of making sure that our members are aware of that, and not just through the copious amounts of emails that you get. So we're actually in tandem looking at our member value proposition and building out a communication strategy so that we are meeting our members where our members are and at the level of capacity that our members have. That's one thing that I've found coming out of the pandemic is nobody has time. Time is a very precious commodity. It always has been, but I think that got dialed up in a very different way. So for us, while the economy is challenging and revenue has been challenging, and because one of the things that happens is, when the economy is down and budgets are affected, we're a volunteer membership organization, like many of our members. So people get a choice of whether or not they have money in their budget to pay for their membership, or is that one of the things that falls off in favor of something else? And that's happened. We have data that supports that. So building a plan that is the right size for our membership and built so that we can deliver on all of the things that we do so well has been a real focus in terms of that shift, and really diving into what is the value that we provide to members, and making sure once we finalize that our members are wholly aware of it. That's the counterbalance to a turbulent economy.
Yeah.
So, but it's taken a couple of years to sort of live through, challenging financial times.
So I could totally relate to it. I think a lot of even my own nonprofit and also association clients, what they have, what I could see in them is that they have a lot of value to offer. It's just that how do they communicate it to the members or sponsors or the stakeholders that are that are part of their network. And what I see often fall short on is the communication piece. Even though you have a lot of value, people don't know that you offer those value. And it's good. It's great that you guys are identifying that and act on it as well. Like one thing that I want to ask though is that maybe I'm thinking, having some client in mind. But one thing I want to ask is that, like, did you discover it on your own, or did you work with someone to go through this whole discovery journey?
So I'm going to talk specifically to the member value proposition, because I think that's the journey, that's the piece that we've absolutely looked at. So we worked with Gerald Bram from Bram Research, really really, really love his approach to gathering information and data. So we've worked with him a few times, and we talked to him about creating this membership trends report. We wanted to I had lots of members asking me, what's happening with this? What are the trends? What are the recent, and I was curious too. I needed to know for CSAE. So we talked to Gerald, created this great survey. And then from that, he authored this great report called Membership Trends 2024. In that, there's some really great information. The thing that stuck out for me, and I caveat this by saying it may possibly be because of my background, which is steeped in communications, was the whole notion that organizations that reported that they are growing also reported that they have a strong value proposition, member value proposition, which they communicate often. And organizations that reported that they were staying the same or declining did not. So that was a key piece for myself and the team. We looked at it and said, we got to do some work with the member value proposition. The other thing that I did as part of this process, or that we've done for the last year and a half, is we have an exceptional board of directors. We have an exceptional group of volunteers who give their time to lead this organization. And the interesting thing is the people around the table largely do the same job that I do. They run associations. So there is a great deal of understanding and awareness, and also nowhere to hide, because they're going through the same things, right? So it makes for a really great experience from building strategy and thinking strategically and setting direction. So they are really very strong at that. And we've had ask me in a little bit about how we run our agendas for our board, because this is what gives space to having those very big strategic conversations. And we've engaged the board in the membership engagement conversation for a while. So, our membership has always sort of been like this, how do we stabilize it? How do we grow it? Those are the kinds of conversations that we have at the board table. Sort of borders operational conversation, but they always keep it in the strategic realm. They were very keen when they got the membership trends report as well. They bought it. I gave them pieces of it, but they bought it like everybody else did, on focusing on the member value proposition. And because we have a board strategy session and meeting every year, this year we were able to align it with the team retreat. And so we had an overlap day where we focused on just building a member value proposition that was right for CSAE today. And we had a consultant do it for us. Erin Roberts from Zeem worked with us. She facilitated our session. And we came out of that day with a statement. So the sentiment of the statement is right. The actual finessing of the final statement is still in development. And then once we have that, we'll have a couple of roundtable discussions or focus group discussions with members from across the country to get their input into the statement, just to test it, to make sure that it resonates with them. And that'll be an open call. We'll invite members in to join us and have a conversation about it, not to rewrite it, but to make sure that it does in fact resonate with our members. So that's the process that we took. And I'm really excited about where we've landed in terms of the intent of the member value proposition.
Hey, so I'm a very pragmatic person. Yesterday, I had a conversation with someone who's a marketing and brand strategist, and he kept talking about a business idea. I said, how do we do that? I need to know the how. Did you actually end up having some ideas as into, you mentioned that, hey, you offer, CSAE offer great member value. We just need a strong member value proposition, and we need to communicate better. Is there something that, obviously, you guys have been doing a fantastic job in terms of sending out emails, and I see all these emails and activities. Like, what are the concrete steps, or am I jumping too much ahead that you haven't gone there yet?
No, not at all. You're right in the sweet spot, actually, of where we are right now. So the member value proposition we've just done that work, and how we got there is really sort of Aaron led us through the
Yep.
facilitation of, but we looked at, profiling who's the ideal CSAE member. What are the engagement activities that we have for members?
Yep.
How do we score? Do we score well with them or not well with them? We did assessments and we did all of that work, and then we started to finesse statements based on words that we
Yep.
thought
Yep.
were part of that proposition. On the communications front, so also a focus of this annual plan, and our fiscal is May 1 to April 30th. So we are literally just starting our new fiscal year.
Yep.
And I was just in a meeting with a task team yesterday on building out a communications strategy for CSAE for the year. And we just started talking about what that framework is. At the root of the key messages will be that member value proposition. So that informs the key messages. But streamlining communications, because our members have member fatigue. But do we actually go and tell our members, you can go into your profile online, you can go into your CSAE member profile, and you can tell us what information you want to receive from us. You want to receive information about the organization, you want to receive information about events. And then, we need to sort of give agency to our members to choose what they want to get and what they don't want to get. At the same time, part of our job is to make sure that, if there's a revenue generating event like a conference, that you know about it and that you register for it and that you join us. Because again, the conference would be a feature of membership, but the benefit of going to conference is the things that you're going to learn when you're in sessions, the takeaways that you're going to bring back into your own organization, and the people that you're going to meet that become part of your network that you can rely on as you go through your career and work as an association professional. So there are several things that we have to communicate, and part of it is, again, people don't have time to read everything. They don't have, and so looking at it from the lens of what's valuable to members. What is it that our members need to know? What do they want to know? And what are they going to make time to know? And sometimes they're not all the same thing. So it's incumbent upon the communications experts to help craft what that strategy looks like. And the conversation yesterday was really, really exciting in terms of applying the objectives of the communication strategy and then the measurements on them. So, and all of that, it's not downstream from the member value proposition. But if you think that if you think that our vision, or our mission and our vision and our core values are at the heart, are the heartbeat of CSAE, then the member value proposition is what's in it for our members. Why should they be a member? And then from there, how do we frame up how we tell them? And that's coming together in a comms plan. So your question may be a little bit ahead in terms of how we do it, but as soon as we've got that strategy, we'll share it in the resource library on Associations Connect, and you'll be able to see how we're going to fine tune it and finesse it.
I mean, I will be here like a year later. We'll be interviewing you again, and then invite you to talk about the progress, so then we know. Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you.
It is. What did we say yesterday? We said, because we did a comms audit, we did a communications audit a couple of years ago. So it's the information is still highly relevant, and the reality is it's about reducing, refining, and then responding. Right. So we're sort of looking at it through those 3 R's.
It's awesome. I think it's reassuring to know that, hey, like CSAE, although it is, like it is out there and it is the association for associations, so that you guys set a really high standard for people to follow. But then it's also reassuring to know that there are process and things that you guys are working through. It's not always sunshine and rosy, right?
You got it. And listen, we don't always get it right. I don't always get it right. I have lots of ideas. Most of the time the team is saying to me, please don't have another idea for another couple of months. But the reality is, if we don't try things, if we don't look at what the diagnostics are telling us, if we don't look at what member behavior is telling us, if we don't, we'll try things. We don't always get it right. We've had projects that we've done that were not successful. The important thing about those is we learn from them. We take the learnings. Feedback is always a gift, right? Like what we learn, as long as we take the things that we can actually change and make better and leave behind the things that just don't matter. We ask for member feedback all the time, and we take the feedback that is really relevant and meaningful and that we can actually affect change on. That's really important. But for sure, we don't always get it right. And nothing is ever set in stone. Like things change all the time. And I have been, a catalyst for change in a lot of organizations that I've worked with. I learned at a very early age that change is something to embrace. It's not, it can be intimidating. It can be downright terrifying. I grew up in small town Ontario. I grew up in a place in cottage country where, throughout the school year, there were 1,100 people that lived in the town that I grew up in.
Wow. Small.
You couldn't get away with anything. And it would be 11,000 in the summer. But we moved to Ottawa as a family in 1980, and we moved in January. My dad had been working he'd sold his business. He had been working in Ottawa for a couple of years. It was time for us to move. They had decided that he was going to stay, so we would end up moving. So I was in January of 1980, I was halfway through grade 12. And I'm old enough that I went to grade 13. So in Ottawa.
Me too.
Halfway, you don't look it, but halfway through grade 12, I had the choice. My parents had given me the choice. I could stay in Fenelon Falls and finish out my school year, or I could move to Ottawa with them. And at the end of the day, I was so connected to my friends, but I knew that I needed my family and I felt that they needed me. So, and I wasn't that old. So I wasn't, I was like 17. So I wasn't totally altruistic. I was a selfish teenager, but I was pretty tight with my family. So I couldn't see me not going with them. So I moved to Ottawa and I started a new school on January 11th, 1980, in the dead of winter, a school that was probably 3 times the size of the high school that I had come from, where I knew a lot of people and was fairly popular and wholly involved. And I'd left my very best friend and, all of my friends, everything that I knew. Yeah. And I started a new journey. That's probably the first foray that I had into what change is really like. And you can either embrace it and go forward with it, which I did. I ended up meeting actually a friend of mine from Ottawa, was just who I met on that day, January 11th, 1980, was just down a couple of weekends ago for the weekend, her and her husband. So I learned then to embrace change. My parents always shared with me, my sisters, that, challenges are going to hit you all the time. And it's the opportunity that you make from them. So when a challenge hits, look beyond the challenge and look to the horizon and see where the opportunity is. I have done that throughout my entire life, as a parent, as a human being, as a partner, as a wife, as a mom, as an association professional. And in that, like I said, you don't always get it right. I won't always get it right. But if I'm not willing to change things, if I'm not willing to try, if I'm not curious and ask questions, and my mother would say I'm nosy, I say I'm naturally curious, then we don't live and we don't grow. And it would be really lousy to get to the end of this life and say, I didn't give it my all because I was too afraid that I was going to not get it right or I was too afraid to fail.
Wow, that was a deep, deep share right
Sorry.
there.
That's a
No.
lot.
Like I have the last question because I also want to be respectful of your time. I have one last question, which I mean, you open it all up and it leads to this last question very, very well. I know mental health has been a huge issue, like from
Mm.
COVID, and a lot of people are getting really stressed and not being able to connect to each other. And in particular, in the nonprofit world, association leaders and nonprofit leaders are feeling it a lot. And
Mm.
it's the pressure from the board and then the pressure from your team. You're kind of sandwiched in the middle. How are you handling the mental health? And like, are there any lessons that we can learn? Because you generally, like from the conversation that we have, you embrace change really well. How do you cope with all these pressure as a leader? And you're pretty lonely up there.
It's funny because someone I know just stepped into a CEO role, and we've had conversation about, oh, I think I was really sheltered before and didn't realize it. I was really lucky. I said earlier that I worked with Kindergarten Child and Family Services for almost 7 years. So I worked in an environment where eliminating the stigma surrounding mental health was really, it was the forefront of the work that I did. And I've been a long time advocate for that. I've always made sure that my children could look after themselves and recognize that, mental health is as important as physical health, sometimes more important, because it drives our bodies as well, right? Our minds drive our bodies. For me, I sometimes struggle with anxiety. I think everybody does. It's the level of which things make you anxious or don't. I think it's, for me, I try to recognize when I need to take a step back. Burnout is real. There are a lot of articles right now on burnout, and I think burnout is directly connected to mental health. I think the last 4 years have been really tough. The Great Disruptor, where we were hanging on for dear life, not knowing what was going to happen with the world. The whole world changed. And then the last couple of years, in early March of 2020, I actually created Talk Tuesdays, which we still do with at CSAE. We meet monthly now. We used to meet once a week. It's an open, informal conversation that takes place on Zoom. And it's one of those things that it's a bit of a hidden gem now. We probably need to tell more people about it because all are welcome. But I started it just after we closed the offices, because one day I was having a particularly bad day. There were a lot of tears. It was March of 2020. And I thought, I can't be the only one who feels like this. I can't be the only person in the CSAE broad community who's feeling this. So we created Talk Tuesdays, and we got together once a week, a whole bunch of people, different people, all the time, not to talk about CSAE, not to promote anything, but to really just talk about, how you doing? How can we support each other? What's going on? Those have continued to happen, always a little bit to my surprise and my joy, because I love getting together with people once a month. The other thing that I try to do is surround myself with people that are positive people. I pull away from real, true negativity. I pull away from bullying behavior or harassing behavior, or we used to say the negative Nellies of the world, right? I try to surround myself with people who think similarly. I rely on my mentors. I rely on my sounding boards. I'm fortunate that I have a really strong board that who check in with me independently, not to talk board business. When things are happening, they'll check in with me. So I suffered a personal loss at the end of December this past year of my best friend that I mentioned that I left in Fenelon Falls. We'd known each other for 48 years, and we were thick as thieves. and she's very much a part of me. It was really tough, but board members reached out. Friends and family reached out. So so it's about creating the balance. And for me, it's about surrounding myself with those people, and also recognizing the signs in yourself. I know when I have to step away. I took a week off in March. I didn't go anywhere. Every day I planned to do something that was sort of self-care related. So massage, I went out for lunches with friends. I did things that were just for me. My husband was working. My kids don't live at home anymore. So I was able to take a week away. And because I recognized that I was no good to anybody, home or work, because I couldn't focus on things. So recognizing that in yourself is really important. The other thing is, there is nothing wrong with talking with people, with professionals. Everybody has a job in the world. Yeah. And so the therapists, the counselors, the psychologists, the psychiatrists, whatever you need, use them. There's no shame in using them. If you had a broken arm, you'd have a doctor put it in a cast. So yeah, if you have something that's really troubling you and you need to talk to somebody, I would seek out expert help to talk with them. And I have made sure that my children know that as well, because I think that's one of the things that each generation can do for the next, which is eliminate those stigmas and make sure that things are, you talk about EDI, or we talk about looking after ourselves from a mental health perspective, anything that has a stigma around it. We have the power to change that and to remove it for the next generation if we can, and we absolutely should.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. That's amazing. I do have to tend to agree that there is a stigma talking to a therapist, even among my family. So it's reassuring to hear that someone is saying, like, hey, someone like you is saying that it's okay to talk to a professional, and it makes sense, make total sense. And yeah. Well, that is a lot of information that you share. Thank you so much for giving us a snapshot of what your day is like running an organization with 2,500 members, and your journey a little bit. And I'm very grateful to have you on our podcast today. And I'm sure people who are listening to this will be learning a lot from you. Yeah, thank you so much, Tracy.
Thank you, Cherry. It has been a pleasure to just sit and chat. Thank you very much for thinking of me and including me. It was, I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, so for people who want to learn a little bit more about CSAE, I know CSAE has a lot of resources that you mentioned earlier, the membership survey, as well as I think there is a transition checklist from virtual office also to from physical office to virtual office. I think you guys have done it, and you have a great checklist online as well. How do they find out more about CSAE?
They can send an email to info@csae.com. They can also always reach out to me, which is Tracy. There's no E in Tracy, so TRACY @csae.com is wherever you want to go. Any member of the team will happily respond. Those are 2 emails that you can share with your listeners, and I'm always open to having a quick conversation and then pointing people in the right direction.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing and coming on. Really an honor. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
As we wrap up, I want to share a bit more about what we do at Otis Financial Solutions. For the past 18 years, Otis Financial Solutions has been dedicated to enhancing the financial management and strategic planning capabilities of hundreds of associations and nonprofits across Canada. Our extensive experience has enabled us to deliver tailored financial solutions that drive growth and enhance sustainability for nonprofits and associations. If you are interested in learning more about how Otis Financial Solutions can support your organization, I would love to offer you a no-obligation 20-minute call. Let's discuss your unique challenges and explore how we would be able to help you achieve your goals.